Hi everyone, it's Matt Armstrong. Welcome to The Pen Habit. I've got another great review for you today. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at a pen from a relatively small manufacturer. It's just one guy basically, Chris Manning of Silverhand Studios. I met Chris at the DC Pen Show and he was kind enough to let me borrow one of his beautiful pens for review. So I wanted to show you about this pen. So, quick thank you to Chris for letting me borrow this pen. As soon as the review's done and I get it cleaned out, it will be on its way back to you. So, here we go. The pen in question for today is this little beauty. This is the Gothic Overlay. So this is from Silverhand Studios, which is Chris's company, and this is the Gothic Overlay pen. Now, Chris is both a pen maker and a jeweler and a silversmith, so he makes a lot of jewelry, does a lot of precious metal works. Clearly knows what he's doing. Talented guy. Walk you through the pen here. So starting up at the top, you've got an acrylic base, and then you've got this very interesting roll stopper, which you can either set it down like that, or on the side it will keep it from rolling with the little Gothic cutouts right there. The rest of the cap is kind of straight with an inlay of silver. Then you've got more black acrylic and this very beautifully created, very beautifully cast, and quite chunky silver overlay. This is done with Argentium, I believe it's Argentium. Yes, Argentium silver. It's available in Argentium silver or 18 karat gold. And Argentium silver is silver that, I've got it written down here, make sure I understand. So generally, sterling silver is 92.5% silver and the rest copper. Problem with sterling silver is that it can tarnish a little bit more easily. Argentium silver was created in the early 1990s, and it's technically considered sterling silver because it has that 92.5% silver. It's actually 93.5% silver plus a tiny little bit of germanium, and the rest would be copper. One of the germanium, one of the things that helps in that silver, Argentium silver, is that the germanium oxidizes and kind of creates a coating that prevents the silver from oxidizing and tarnishing as well and easily as it would if this were just plain sterling silver. So you'll notice that this is quite bright and quite shiny. The other thing that Argentium silver has that sterling doesn't is when you heat it up, sterling, you can kind of leave, I think it's called fire scaling. You'll get kind of the black marks along that, and the only way to clean it is to polish it or to put it in an acid bath to get rid of that oxidation. You don't run into that problem anywhere near as much with Argentium silver. Now, I should also point out that most overlays are very, very thin. This is very thick and 3D and sculptural. So unlike most overlay pens, there's a lot of metal here, a lot of silver in this pen. Take it apart, and you've got a nice long section, which I'm always a fan of, number 6 18 karat gold nib. And you can get different nibs from Chris, but this is the one that happened to be in the pen. This is a broad italic. It is a cartridge converter pen, and just a standard international cartridge or converter. Takes both the long cartridges and the converters. I believe this probably could be used as an eyedropper as well. The threads are wonderfully cut. They're very, very smooth, very tight, no slack in them at all. So very, very nicely manufactured there. And then the pen can kind of post, but it doesn't. I mean, it's friction fit only. This is a pen that is awfully long and doesn't really need to be posted though. So that is the Silverhand Studios Gothic Overlay. It's very attractive, I think very classy. I love Gothic architecture, and there's a lot of that inspiration in here, which is, I'm sure, why he called it the Gothic Overlay. And I really like this roll stopper here. Now, one of the things people ask me about a lot is price. And I will tell you what is on the website. The price on this is $1,250. Now, I know that seems like a lot of money, and it is. The thing to keep in mind is the materials for this pen are quite expensive. This is not your traditional overlay. It's quite chunky. There's a lot of work that goes into these. So when you get into this realm of pen, you kind of leave the mass production and go into custom works of art and custom commissions. And so just be aware that obviously at $1,250, a pen like this is not for everyone, but for the person that it is right for, this should be considered almost like a work of art as opposed to just a writing instrument, because the artisanship and craftsmanship that go into this are pretty special. So let's go ahead and look at the stats. This is 156.3 millimeters when it's capped, so it's a very, very long pen. To compare it to some other well-known pens, here is the Mont Blanc 149, the Lamy All-Star, the Platinum 3776, and let me straighten these all up so you can get a better sense of how they all fit together, and the TWSBI VAX 700. So you can see this is quite a long pen. Uncapped, you're looking at 146 millimeters, so still quite a long pen. In the hand, you are not going to need to cap this. Unless you have like monster hands, this will always be long enough for you. You don't need to worry about it too much. And as I mentioned, it can kind of post, but it's a very, very long 192 millimeters. And I find it's quite back heavy. I would never ever post this pen. So when you're looking at diameters, I'm going to move the cap off of here. When you're looking at diameters, it's just over 10 millimeters in the middle of the section. And I do like that this section is longer. I can actually grip it on the section and not on the threads or further up the barrel like I have to do in a lot of pens, so I like this a lot. I also like that the nib doesn't feel super deeply set, so it's nice and long, can get down to the paper nice and smoothly. 13.4 millimeters is the widest point of the barrel, so it's a long, I'm not sure I'd say slender, but for its length, it's quite slender. Usually pens that are this long are quite a bit chunkier. And then the widest point of the cap that is not the roll stopper, you're looking at 14.9 millimeters. And with all of this metal on the pen, I suppose it's not terribly surprising that it is a little on the heavier side. So you're looking at 28 millimeters here, or 28 grams. And with the cap, or either posted or capped, you're looking at 42 grams. So a little on the chunky side, but still quite usable. Actually, this is much lighter than I was expecting it to be, considering how much metal is on the pen. The acrylic doesn't add a lot of weight, so the metal actually gives it a very nice heft and feel in the hand. So, beautiful pen, craftsmanship. I will say that the style is not right up my alley, but for those who really like this style, it's beautifully done. It is absolutely beautifully done. The craftsmanship on this pen is absolutely flawless. I have yet to find anything wrong with the pen itself. Before I dive into the writing sample, I will say I've had just a tiny bit of a problem with this nib. It's not the nib or the way it's tuned, it's the way I write. This is a broad italic nib, and it is a very, very sharp italic nib. I don't generally use sharp italic nibs. I don't write well with them. So because I have a tendency to, instead of writing straight to the paper, I tend to roll my pen a little bit, and on a sharp italic nib, it does not like that at all. So in the writing sample, if you see some skips and hard starts, know that that's an artifact of the way I write, not of the nib itself, because when I really sit down and very slowly focus on writing with the nib in the correct position, that's not a problem. And with a pen like this, know that you can get a variety of nibs. You can get them adjusted to your specifications. So if you don't want a broad italic, you don't have to get one. I probably wouldn't get one myself. I'd get a medium or a broad round nib or a stub. I like stubs too. So all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the writing sample. All right. So here we have the Silverhands Studio Gothic overlay. we have an 18 karat gold nib in broad italic. The ink is number 28 Ackermann Hofquartier, I believe. Green, bright, very meadowy, springtime, vibrant green, almost a highlighter green. Really nice shading on this, you can see right here. It's a green I haven't used a lot. This is another ink I picked up at the DC show. This is the first pen I've put it in. I like it. I need to try it in a different pen to see like something really with a nice springy nib like my Omas. I think that'll be a beauty right there. And a Rhodia dot pad, as always. Okay, here is the quote. Okay, so you'll see that there were a couple of little spots here on the G. As I mentioned earlier, I don't like writing with sharp italics, and this is the sharpest italic nib I've ever used. So for me, this is not a great writing experience. Not that the pen's bad or that the nib is bad, it's just a nib I don't particularly care for. I actually think that the 18 karat gives it a nice bit of bounce, so you can get some really nice pooling on the ink. This is a nib that would really like a highly shading ink. I think Diamine Autumn Oak or Noodler's Apache Sunset would look great in a pen like this because you're going to get lots of great pooling. But you can see on the broad italic, you can see the difference in variation between the horizontal and the vertical lines. There's a pretty big differentiation. I'm not going to push this too far, but you can see there is a little bit of give above and beyond the, let me move over just a bit, beyond the regular variation you're going to get with it being an italic, but the feed will struggle to keep up. This is not a nib that's meant to be flexed. It's pretty rigid. It is 18 karat gold. And someone mentioned to me in a comment or an email recently that I should recommend to my users that they never ever try to flex an 18 karat gold nib. I agree with that. I generally tend to push my nibs just a little bit when I'm doing these testings, but with 18 karat gold, you don't want to try to flex the nib. 18 karat gold is too soft. Yes, you'll be able to get the tines to spread apart. That's not the problem. Getting them to come back together, that's the problem. The reason 14 karat gold is always a better choice for flex than 18 karat gold is because of all of the other metals that are in that gold. You don't want to have, you've got the other metals that keep 14 karat gold springy, gives it that nice snapback that you want on a flexy nib. So if you've got an 18 karat or for a sailor pen, a 21 karat gold nib, don't bother trying to flex it. I push it just a little bit, and I don't push very hard with 18 karat gold nibs, just to show if there is any line variation or bounciness. There is a bit on this, but it's not a huge amount. So just keep that in mind. Reverse writing, because this is ground to be an italic, it doesn't really do reverse writing, which is fine, because that's not really what it's intended for. It is a little on the dry side, especially for abroad. I would like to see it with just a little bit more wetness, but again, that's something that I'm sure Chris could adjust for. Yeah, so don't put too much stock in the writing performance on this. I mainly wanted to show you the body because the problems with the nib are not problems with the nib or the pen, it's problems with the user. It's the, problem exists between keyboard and chair, PEBCAC. Its problem exists between pen and chair. So Peb Pack, I guess. So that is my overview / review of the Silverhand Studios Gothic overlay. Is it a pen for everyone? Absolutely not. It's not a pen that will speak to everyone. It's a pen very high in price, but it's beautiful workmanship, beautiful craftsmanship, very well built, and really this is work of a master craftsman. So a huge thank you to Chris for letting me borrow this. I will be sending it back insured very shortly. It really has been a pleasure. I think if I play around with one of your pens next time, I'd love to get one with a round nib, because it's the Sprott italic has been tricky for me. I just don't do italics very well. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have questions or comments, please leave them here on YouTube or over at penhabit.com. And or you can find me on Twitter, @penhabit is my handle, or at facebook.com/penhabit. I'm also on Instagram at DRCHUMLEY, Dr. Chumley. There's a story behind that. Maybe I'll tell you some other time. It's not a great story. So I'm all over the social medias, and look forward to seeing you here next time on The Pen Habit. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.